What's going on, Lean Construction World? This is Tim Ho here with Lean Construction Blog and RealLifeLean.com, bringing you the Lean in Action series, where we take Lean superintendents, talk to them about what they're doing and how they're applying Lean principles. Stoked to be joined today with Boone White from ICM. Boone, how you doing?
Good, Tim. How you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. I appreciate you joining me here today. Really excited to get to have a conversation with you. I think I've interacted a little bit back and forth on LinkedIn, commenting on different posts. I see kind of your headspace and where you're at, so I'm really excited for this conversation. Just want to get started with a little bit about you. Where are you from, where are you working, and kind of what your current role is over at ICM.
Yeah, I am from Oxford, Mississippi. Currently in Oxford right now. We have projects all over North Mississippi. Currently, probably going to start expanding out into Alabama and Tennessee and Louisiana in the next few years. Our company is about 9 years old. So then, before moving back to Oxford, I've been back here for about 3.5 years. Before moving back to Oxford, I was all over the country. I used to work for Hoare Construction, worked for them for about 12 years, anywhere from California to North Carolina, but mostly in Texas. So decided about 3.5 years ago to move my family back to Oxford for a more small town life and small town feel. And so it's been great. So currently I am a senior superintendent. And so I'm also I'm running jobs, but I'm also kind of helping implement Lean across all of our projects.
Oh, that's really cool. Were you first introduced to Lean at ICM, or did you have any Lean principles or Lean introduction when you were over at Hoare?
So at Hoare, we talked about Lean probably starting about 10 years ago. It was actually one of the action items on our quarterly agendas. What are you doing that's Lean? But nobody really, at least that long ago, nobody really pushed it or thought about it or explained what it even was. So we just thought it was, another thing that we got to do, right?
Yeah.
So then I think it was in 2015, I was starting up a hospital build in Houston, and I think it was my general superintendent at the time gave me a copy of the goal. So I read that and ate it up. I was like, man, if we could apply this to construction, that'd be cool. And then my plumber foreman on that project, whose name is Adam, not that Adam, a different plumber named Adam, he gave me a copy of 2-Second Lean, and I read that and I was like, okay, so Lean it's not about doing more with less. It's not something to make your life worse. It's to make your life better. So then I started applying it as much as I could. And then it was funny, like maybe a month or two after that, the company hired a Lean consultant, and then they came in and taught me how to do blast planner system, and we did a boot camp with all of the trades on that project, and then we're off to the races.
That's awesome. So you say when you first heard about it early on in your days there, it wasn't something you immediately jumped to. It was kind of one of those boxes you guys checked in a foreman's meeting as you got together, or a superintendent's group. You guys just checked the box like, yeah, we're putting Lean into place.
Yeah,
And
it
then
was
after
like,
you,
okay, well, what does Lean even mean? And I think I had one higher level manager explain, well, it's maximizing value and minimizing waste. And I was like, okay, sure.
cool,
It
we'll
didn't
try that.
really, yeah,
Yeah. That was kind of my first experience with it. We sent a project engineer to a boot camp in Kansas City for last planner system, and he came back and was expected to teach everyone last planner system. And he was like, well, there's like a whiteboard, you got some sticky notes, and you put the work that you're going to do on the sticky notes, you put those on the board for everyone to see. So we ran with that for a while. It's like, oh man, we're doing a last planner system, look at us. So it's interesting how different companies kind of train in almost a similar manner with that. But so it sounds like you got really kind of into it on that hospital build you were talking about. You had a plumber that had some experience with it. And what were some of those first steps you took towards Lean implementation? Do you remember that? Was it, you mentioned you started applying some things before you learned last planner system?
Yeah. So we started doing daily huddles, which is last planner system, but I didn't even know that was part of the last planner system. So just having those daily talks, and then we went to like all stand up desk in the job trailer, and just all that Paul Acre stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then and again, it wasn't very long after I read those two books that we started doing actual last planner, and I probably butchered it. Uh, just to get started. And it's funny how many people just call last planner system pull planning. Like they think that pull planning is all it is to it. But we had a 6 week look ahead. We had our weekly work plans on movable whiteboards. We I would say we had success with it, but my inexperience and the fact that we approached it more as a stick and not a carrot. We started using the daily huddles and the weekly work plans to throw the contract at the trades, which was not the right
Mm.
thing to do. And it didn't fall apart, but we could have had a lot better participation had we approached it with more of a idea of respect than just trying to cram it down somebody's throat.
Yeah, I think a lot of times is really that tough balance, right? Nowadays, construction is you're still pretty tied to that CPM schedule that's tied to someone's contract, but you want to use the last planner system to better those dates or to better that schedule if possible. I know I find some struggle sometimes when you're trying to get a trade to pull a date in, but they're like, well, the schedule shows right here. I have 2 more weeks. And you're like,
Right.
it's that, like you said, that carrot and stick. How are you going to go about working through that? So you took some lessons from that. I'm sure is that you run your last planner system a lot differently than you did on that first hospital project back in the
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about respect now. So like even in the phase pool that I participated in today, you're trying to hit the date, and you're trying to get a solid cohesive plan from all the trade partners to hit that date. And a lot of them are still trying to sandbag because they've been hit over the head by these other GCs that just pound them with the schedule. And I'm like, look, I had to stop the meeting and like, guys, I want you to be aggressive, but if in being aggressive, we can shrink this schedule and have a whole lot more accurate plan, nobody's going to throw the contract at you if you miss it by a day or two. Like superintendent shouldn't say that, right? From the old way, but that's the way you have to approach it.
Yeah, you have to be kind of honest. I found that's usually effective is like, guys, we're just trying to better this. Let's work together. I want you to be aggressive. I'm not going to be mad if you miss it by a day or two. I am going to be frustrated if you sandbag it and tell me you
Oh
need
yeah.
2 weeks and you do it in 2 days. Like, I got 8 days I lost there that we could have filled that work in. So that's a tough balance. Um,
Right. That's why, like when I'm doing PPC and trying to count up my root causes. Now, if you're in a tacted system, it's a little bit different. But if you're just in straight uh, working off of a pull plan and weekly work plans, I will be more relentless about giving them a negative on something that they finished early than about something that they finished late. Right.
yeah, totally, totally agree with that. So after you started kind of getting into last planner system, what were kind of some of the other lean tools you started to use or you currently use?
So last year, I guess about a year and a half ago, I started learning about tax planning. And I know that's like the buzz right now, but
Yeah.
man, it's been a game changer.
Has it really?
Uh, oh yeah, yeah. So at HOR, after I learned last planner system, we were also using a scheduling system called VICO, which was flow line scheduling. And so like it's very similar to TACT, or you can actually do TACT with it because it almost looks like a TACT schedule. It looks very similar to the excerpt from the Empire State Building where they basically tacked out the steel.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were using that system, but then we had some superintendents who basically said, well, yeah, but that's not going to work. You have to schedule it like this. So then all of a sudden we were cutting ties and all these crew ties and basically turning it into a CPM schedule. So then it was just SureTrack or P6, right?
Yep.
So I had learned how to use that system, and I had the visual of using that system and saying, hey, if everything flowed in the same direction and if everything went the same speed, the same distance apart, then why wouldn't this work? So then it kind of left my brain for a few years, and then all of a sudden I read Jason's book or Jason and Spencer's book, and I'm like, well, yeah, this makes a lot more sense. So it kind of hit me naturally. So then I started implementing it, and then went through their training, and it's just been a game changer. I would say 100% of the schedules at ICM are now taxed. We
Wow.
unless the owner forces us to, we are not using CPM.
Oh, that's awesome. So the organization's really just fully jumped on board with that.
Yes.
That's great. Good for you guys. That's tax something that I work at CRB. It's something we're exploring. We haven't really had any superintendents dive into it. I'm excited to get into it. I'm actually, I think, coming up in May, I'm taking that 2-hour session that Elevate's offering, and then hopefully going to jump
Yeah.
into their 3-day
Well,
tax planning, because I just think it'll be a game changer in the way we do work. Everything I've heard is it's just
absolutely.
amazing.
Well, the
So
way the way I sold it to our owner was, and he's a big fan of the goal by Eli Goldratt. The way I explained it to him was CPM scheduling is like the factory at the beginning of the book, and tax planning is like the factory at the end of the book. It's that game changing.
totally changes. That's awesome. I'm excited to jump into that. I know when you first start looking at a tax plan or a tax board, it's like, whoa, a lot of information on here, but I'm sure Jason does a great job with kind of breaking that down.
Oh yeah.
So it sounds like overall you're a big lean construction fan. If you could kind of sum it up, why do you think lean construction practices make for a better project or a better workplace?
Uh, well, I guess you got to define what is a better project. So if a better project means better schedule, better safety, better, or more on budget, uh, all that kind of stuff, I would say lean definitely does that. So usually you're gonna have a better schedule if you use last planner or tact or scrum or all three at the same time, because you're going to have a more accurate schedule. You're going to have trade inputs. It's going to be more collaborative. So it doesn't necessarily mean a faster schedule, but usually it does. But it does not necessarily faster, but more accurate. So then you have less wasted time of not having the right information sooner, if that makes sense. You're going to have a safer project because, I mean, naturally lean jobs are cleaner jobs, right? Also, there's just this there's this air of how can we do things better. So you're always looking for how to make things better and safer. You're usually going to have a more accurate budget. So same principle as schedule. And then also the relationships on the job are just going to be just overall better because everybody is approaching it from a place of respect and not a place of legalities and attorneys, right?
Yeah, that's
So
such a nice place
kind
to
of
be
a long
working from.
answer.
No, I think that you're totally right. I'm working on probably my first large size job where we've been implementing lean, and we were doing a safety celebration yesterday actually. And I was talking to the guys. We've been together for like 18 months now, and it was like this is one of the first jobs I've worked on where we've been together this long, and you're not dealing with crews fighting with each other. You're not dealing with the foremen that don't get along and refuse to talk to each other. Like everyone shows up to work with the same level of respect every day. And I have to credit that just to the lean culture that we're working to build out here. It's a pretty cut and dry difference. You mentioned you talked about how you kind of use last planner system, Scrum, and Tact all together. How do those three systems sort of interweave with each other?
So Tact is definitely used for your overall schedule. Like that's giving you the entire project all on one page in one big picture. Last planner system integrates very easily with tax, because you basically you can pull your weekly work plan out of the tax plan, and then you're still doing your daily huddles. You're still tracking PPC. You just have a better plan to start with. So really, tact and LPS just go really well together. And then Scrum, I like to use Scrum. I'm just learning about Scrum. we've implemented Scrum here on our pre-con team. Just did that like 2 weeks ago, and then we started doing Scrum on my last project. So I've known about Scrum for about as long as I've known about TACT. But anyway, we use Scrum for like a lot of that non-linear type scheduling, like trying to get air turned on, or the stuff that's like really hard to just kind of plot out.
Yeah, there's not like
on
one critical path through it. It's kind of got a fishbone effect to it.
Right. So we'll use Scrum for that, but then also we'll use Scrum to tackle roadblocks, like any of the issues that come up from our daily and weekly meetings. We will assign that to somebody, or like put it on the board, and then the project team will Scrum that and then try to get it to the done column as soon as possible.
That's really cool how those are kind of working together. Is that over at ICM? Is that kind of a standard for your projects that you guys are using all three, or does that kind of depend on who you've got as a superintendent there, or what your team buildup is like? I guess I'm kind of thinking for like if we got someone watching here that's new to lean, a new lean builder, so to say, probably don't recommend trying to learn all three and implement all three. You kind of have a progression that you work through with your teams on this.
Yeah. So we do have TACT plans for all our projects, but I usually am the one who has built that TACT plan. So most of our projects are definitely not doing all three, and I would say the progression for most of our superintendents to learn is almost straight out of the Lean Builder book. Start with daily huddles, and but basically learn the last planner system first, and then once you grasp that, then we can start moving you into Scrum and like how to actually build a TACT plan. But we always start with the last planner, and then we always start with daily huddles, and then move into having really good visuals in the trailer or on the job site, and then progress from there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think last planner system as a whole, if you just were to be scratching the surface of lean and you see that as a whole system, it can be pretty big to kind of
it's pretty daunting to just learn. Yeah.
But if you start it just like you said, the way the lean builder spells it out, you start with daily huddles and you can just progress. I think that you can see some really great things starting to happen there. So
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like in your opinion, and I know in my opinion, lean construction, it really is a great practice to put in place, and really at the core with respect for people, it just makes for a better work environment. Why do you think people in the construction industry, whether that's contractors, trade partners, owners, architects, whoever, have so much animosity towards it, or what are the biggest hurdles to getting lean implemented on a project?
Well, the probably one of the reasons that people have animosity towards it is they have experienced it done wrong, or they've experienced fake lean.
Yeah.
So some boss somewhere told a project team that they're going to do lean, and so that project team said, okay, the boss said we're going to go do lean, and so we're going to do it, and so they go do it, but they don't start with respect. They just there's still hard hat throwing and yelling and in the meetings and all that kind of stuff. That's probably one reason that people don't believe in it, is because they haven't seen it for real, right? And then I would say probably the biggest hurdle to implement lean is so a lot of people say buy-in. Buy-in is a big hurdle, getting everybody bought in, but really, I was thinking about this. I think the biggest hurdle is getting yourself up to speed and just getting started, right? Because if you think about it, before you knew about lean, like when you first started learning about it, it was like you weren't that interested. Once there's a point where it just clicks, right?
Yeah.
There's a point where you get to where, okay, this is the best way that we know of right now to do construction, or to do any of this. So this is the way I'm going to do it. I think that's the hardest part of implementing, is just basically getting yourself bought in. But once you're bought in, and once you have a little bit of experience of how to run a pull plan or how to implement it, then implementation is pretty easy. Even if you have somebody that is not bought in, you know how to get them to that point.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part, right? That buy-in is it's such an individual level, right? You can't force lean. We're running into that right now at our company. I mean, CRB's got a couple thousand employees company wide. Um, and it's like it's an individual journey that everyone needs to be on. And you just got to keep lighting those fires and helping those people that are passionate about it explore. Um, it
You know, can't imagine trying to turn a ship that big. We're only about 50 employees strong right now, and 3 years ago we were 12. So
yeah.
we have a unique opportunity where I am to implement it across the company a little bit easier than something that big.
Yeah, so we're a mix of design. We've got architects and engineers, and then construction side. So really kind of picking little bits and pockets. We'd love to be a full lean organization, but I think there's no one thinks that's an easy task with a company that size trying to turn the ship. We got quite a few people on board, but just takes getting more and more people passionate about it is really the goal. Um, on that kind of passion thing, what would you think is the number one trait that a lean builder can have? What would you say is the best thing a lean superintendent could bring with them every day?
So I put some thought into this too. You could say something like curiosity or perseverance, but really you could probably wrap all that up together in a desire to learn. I think if you have a really strong desire to learn, even if you're just getting started or if you've been doing lean for a while, if you have that, you're going to keep progressing.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was having a conversation with Adam Hoots a couple weeks back, and we were talking through that. A curious mind in a builder and someone who's willing to put in, I mean, it doesn't take much effort, right? Just a little bit of Google searches, you can find some lean articles. That's really kind of why I started the newsletter I've got going, Real Life Lean, is just to make it even easier for people. Every week, here's just 4 quick topics you can go learn on. But having that curious mind and that just desire to continuously improve, I think is super huge. For me, the biggest thing was I was looking at projects and constantly hearing the same thing, like it's over budget, it's under schedule. Yeah, well, not as bad as the last one, or yeah, it kind of always goes that way. And it's like there's got to be something better out there. Not every construction project's ran this way. So I
Right.
think that's a
Your
huge
heart
tool.
has to be prepared to receive lean, basically, right? You
Yeah.
gotta you gotta be frustrated with the current situation and then find the cure.
Yep. I think that's where the first time I heard about lean, why it didn't really stick with me. I was almost too new into the industry where I was like, well, I don't know. Everyone says this is how it always goes. So I think that's kind of the norm. And then after a few years, it was like, well, I'm gonna go back to that whole lean thing. I think those guys were onto something. So, what do you think the biggest misconception out in the world is about lean construction?
Uh, there's a few. I think I've already mentioned one. So people hear lean and think, oh, that means we have to do more work with less resources. Right? That's one. Um, let's see. I think that's probably the biggest misconception out there. And then the whole thing about, oh, well, lean is just pool planning. That's barely scratching the surface.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
I think I run into it a lot when I'm trying to convince a trade partner of it. They think it's like cutting budget and cutting costs, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it might lead to that, but that's not what we're asking you to do. It's funny. I think I get a lot of times too. I'll start a pull plan session, whether it's phase pull or milestone, with kind of who has experience with this. And it's funny. You mentioned fake lean earlier and had me thinking of how many people raise their hand that they've done it. And you're like, oh, great. Like I'm going to have a good group of people to work with here. And you
Right.
could bring them up to
They're
the
more
board and
resistant
start
than the
putting up
ones
their
who've never heard
stickies.
of it.
Yeah. They're like, no, this is how we did it on the last one. I'm like, well, all you're doing is putting a sticky on a board with a 30-day duration on there. So
Right.
it's interesting. Why do you think more superintendents don't implement lean construction? Is there not that curious mind that you were talking about? Is it scared of doing something different? What do you think?
I think it's kind of a mixture of all of that. Some some people some people have not recognized that there is a disease and that there needs to be a cure. Some people, there's a whole lot of people in this industry that say, well, that's the way we've been doing it for X amount of years, right? I've trained myself to where if I ever hear somebody say that, that's a red flag. Like if that's the way we rig steel, that's the way we've been doing it for X years. Well, then that's not the reason that you should do it that way. There should be a reason that you should do something a certain way. So yeah, there's a lot of inertia, and then yeah, just not having that desire to change. And then I would also say not a lot of awareness. Like I know a lot of superintendents that until I met them never heard the word lean. So having the awareness, and then also uh, once you get that awareness, having the desire to learn more and more about it, to be able to implement it. If you don't have that, then it's just like it doesn't exist.
Is that
And
something
I'll
standard?
also say this: it takes effort to run a project. It takes more proactive upfront effort to run a lean project. But what you don't realize is it takes less effort overall to run a lean project than it does to run a non-lean project. But you
Totally.
don't, if you're not proactive, you're not going to do it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
You spend your days fighting fires if not, right?
that's
You're
right.
putting the effort in one way or the other. Either put it in on the front end and be able to have a smooth project, or don't put it in and just expand that throughout the entire project. So is that
Right.
something
And
you
you
guys
end up,
look for in superintendents over at ICM or your team? Is that something as part of your guys' onboarding process? Is looking for and talking about lean construction?
yes, we definitely do that. But one thing we're finding, and I love Mississippi. I was born and raised here, but finding guys who are even aware of lean to hire here is few and far between. So yeah, I would love to hire a guy who's like, oh yeah, I know, I'm very familiar with how to do blast planner system, or how to run a full plan, or how to any of it. But just to be honest, I have not, we haven't hired anybody in the last 2 years that are familiar with it.
So you guys are just
That,
doing all
that
that kind of in-house training and bringing those people up in the ICM way.
right.
That's, hey, that works. They're going to do it the way that you guys have. You don't have any bad habits to break, I guess, is kind of a positive about that.
Well, we don't have any fake lean habits to break.
There you
There's
go.
there's plenty of bad habits to break, just from the old school ways of doing things, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. How about for project kickoff? This is something I've been interested in recently, is trying to uh, develop over at CRB some sort of a lean onboarding as we kick our projects off to get our foreman up to speed. Is that anything you guys spend any time doing?
So on large projects, we will do it's like a boot camp. It's pretty much an all day meeting. We'll introduce them to pull plans. We depending on where the project is during the meeting, we may perform a pull plan. We'll go over what last planner system is, what the TAC plan is, and what it looks like, how to read it. We'll show a bunch of videos that basically show, okay, here's what projects look like, and here's what projects can look like. And we just really try to do, it's almost like a lean awareness meeting, and we try to do that all at once. But depending on what, the timing of trades coming on the building, sometimes we have to do it twice. Like maybe we'll do like an exterior or like a structure one, and then do one for interiors. But having some kind of a onboarding or lean boot camp is definitely helpful.
Yeah, I think that's something I haven't done before. We've done kind of the first milestone plan that we're going to do. We kick that off with, a half hour prior, kind of discussing what the goal is going to be. But I've been thinking about it recently because I was talking with my plumbing foreman, and he was like, "Oh, I came from a previous job where we had a real success because we had to go to 3 days of a boot camp leading up to it. And they, all foremen had to show up. Breakfast and lunch was provided for you, and we were just going to sit down and talk about what lean construction is and how we plan to implement that." So just curious if you guys were doing anything like that. I think it's awesome. It sounds like your first day kind of lean kickoff meeting is probably a pretty good one to be a part of. So um I don't really have anything else for you, Boone. Is there anything you wanted to share or touch on that we didn't touch on here, or any parting words you want to give the audience?
I can't think of anything specifically. I would say if you are just learning about lean or just getting started, don't don't get overwhelmed with trying to get it perfect. Just get started and then learn from there and then improve from there and then just keep on going and keep on improving. Like that's the only way you're going to get started.
That PDCA cycle, huh?
Yeah.
Just go through. I knew that held me up a lot when I first started, was kind of the perfectionism that I have just as an individual. I'm always wanting things to be 100%. Still to this day, sometimes I'll talk to one of my lean coaches and they'll be like, look at where you were 2 years ago and look at what you're doing
Yeah.
now, and think about that growth as opposed to the day to day. So that's awesome, man. I appreciate the advice. I hope everyone watching will as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Awesome, Boone. Thank you very much.